Hi everyone, this is Aaron Runt, and in my last tutorial we went over the 5-axis simultaneous motion with this part that we have right up here. And in this tutorial we're going to take it a little bit further by looking at point to point and from point for pivoting with our motion. So the first thing I want to do is I need to go to the description below and download these 3 items, and then we're going to go to create new document. I'm going to hit cancel for my dimensions for the stock. We'll come back to that in a moment. And the first thing I'm going to grab is I'm going to grab my Ultimate 2 part. I'm going to drag and drop it. I'm going to import it. And if you want to come up to the file and import it that way, that will also work. But I like to drag and drop. I will hit yes. Now this is kind of similar to my other tutorials, except this time we're going to skip the Z direction because when it comes in, it's already pointing straight up and down. Now I do want to go to next, and I do want to pick 2 points in X. This is going to really help us when we start defining our motion. So I'm going to pick X, and I'm going to rotate up, and I'm going to grab this line right here. It could be of any of those 3 pockets, but I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to hit next. I'm going to go to block. I'm going to hit compute. I'll zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go to compute from the stock boundary. I'm going to hit next. We're going to keep it in the center, and then I'll hit next one more time for 5th axis, and then I'm going to click center of the imported data boundaries box. Now you won't see anything move, but I'm going to click it right there. So I'm going to hit next and finish. So now we can see that it does look right. It is right on the center. So if it doesn't look right and it looks like it's off center, it's because it's wrong. So you need to go back and re-import it and follow those steps again. At this point in time, I'll go back to my isometric mode, and I'm going to bring in my stock just like we did with the last tutorial. So I'm going to grab the stock, I'm going to drag and drop it, I'm going to hit yes, and this is going to be a lot easier because this has already been defined. I'm going to click use the same alignment as last imported and hit finish. And just like that, it's all done. I'll come back to my isometric mode. Now I can come up to my stock, and I can right click and go to properties. Now on solids, I can see that this is the solid for my part, this is the solid for my stock. So I'll come over to user define, solid stock, stock solid, OK and apply, and I'm all done. So I hit OK, but this is in the way while I'm trying to do my machining. So I'm going to right click on the stock and go hide selected, and just like that we are ready to start adding our toolpath. And to make sure that our toolpath is correct, I'm going to grab that 5-axis and I'm going to drag and drop it right down here, which it already says it's on, but I'm going to drag and drop it again because it's not going to hurt anything, especially if you don't have the 5-axis in there. It's always a good idea to bring that in. So we're going to go up to features. I'm going to grab this entire part. I'm going to go to surface milling and hit next. I'm going to hit add all those surfaces. I'm going to hit next. We're going to choose a single operation. We're going to go to roughing strategies, Z level, next, and finish. It'll grab a 1/2-inch tool, and we're simply going to hit OK. And what that looks like, I'll come to my 3D mode. I'll hit play, and it's simply going to go and rough everything out. Now I'm going to be going through these simulations pretty fast because it's going to be flying all over the place. So that looks good for my roughing, and if you need to rotate it, you can see that it did the 3rd side as well. I'll come back to my isometric view and hit eject. Now I'm going to go into features. I'm going to go to surface milling. Now I'm going to select these surfaces to the left of the x-axis. So if you look, the X is pointing to the positive. I want to select these. I want to be very particular with selecting these for this part of the tutorial. So I'm going to make sure I rotate up, and I'm going to select by holding control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I will hit add and next. Now pay attention because we're going to select a few options here, and if you select the wrong option or if you don't select the right option, you're going to struggle for the rest of this tutorial. So choose a single operation. We're going to go with Z level for our finishing strategy. I'm going to hit next, and right here, cut selected surfaces. Only cut selected part surfaces. You have to select this or it's going to give you some struggle. Next, I'm going to use part surface dimensions. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to hit next again, and I don't want to use a 1/2 inch ball nose. I want to use the same ball nose that I used for the last tutorial, which is a 1/4 inch. I will hit next and finish. And now I'm going to hit OK. So the first thing we want to do, the majority of the work is done. We just have to see if it's right. I'm going to hit play, but I'll slow it down once we get to the next tool. So to do this correctly, I will come to play to the next tool change. That way it can run really fast on here. I'm going to change this to pan. Helps me with my maneuvering. And then I'll hit play again, but I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. And we can see that's not exactly what we want. In fact, we're starting to get some craziness going on right here because my holder, my shank of my tool, I got a lot going on. But remember, we're in a 5-axis simulation, so we're going to start utilizing our 5-axis capabilities. So I'm going to hit eject. I always like to go to isometric. This is just for my preference on how I like things to look. Now we're going to go up to here and we're going to select check surfaces from the surface mill properties. So check surfaces tells my machine to not cut that surface right there, which it was gouging into. So I'm going to hit plus, OK, and apply. And then I'm going to hit OK. But that's not going to fix everything that's wrong. What we're going to look at now is we're going to look at a strategy called from point that aligns the tip of the tool away from a fixed point. That will just make sense as we do it. So I'm going to go and construct a point. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to type in a -1 inch 500 thousandths in my X location. So it should be right around here. I'm going to hit create. And it made this little point right here. Now I'm going to hit escape so that I get out of my point selection mode. And now we're going to tell our machine to pivot around that point right there that's in that location. So I'm going to go right click on surface mill, go to my properties. We're going to go to Z level. I'm going to go to 5-axis, and we're going to come down here and we're going to select other. Now this says point number 2. Because that is the point that it did. Yours might say point number 1, doesn't matter. But that is the point that we just selected. As you can see, it did turn red. So I'm going to hit apply. I'm going to click OK. And then again, I'm just going to hit play and I'm going to let this run all the way through. Now I like to zoom out so that I can run just a little bit faster. But you're going to see it's going to tilt now. And like I said, it's going to be all over the place. But you can see that it didn't collide with my stock, the holder, nor the tool. But my step down needs to be adjusted. And if you look right here, it didn't cut the bottom. So I'm going to hit eject. We're going to go back to the surface milling. We'll be doing this quite a bit. I'm going to go to properties. I'm going to go to the Z leveling. All I have to click is this right here, interleave spiral paths. Then I'm going to go apply. I'm going to go to finish, and now I'm going to work on those step downs by going to milling. I'm going to change this to 10 thousandths. I'm going to hit set and apply and OK. All we did was make it cut that bottom part, and it's going to now go 10 thousandths at a time. So I'm going to zoom out again, and you'll see that it's going to take a little bit longer to run. And I can zoom up just a little bit. And at any point in time, you can pause this, kind of rotate it to where it looks a little bit easier to see, and then we can slow down our simulation. But you can kind of see that it is starting to do that right there. And you can slow it down all the way so you can actually see the machine doing all of its pivoting just like that, which is really cool. But I'm going to speed up a little bit. I'll go back to my isometric view, and you can see that that looks way cool. Okay, so that looks really good. But here's the thing, my machine might not have that much maneuverability. So I might collide with a vise, so on and so forth. So maybe I don't want it to tilt from that point and on just that one side. And plus I have two other sides I have to do, and those other sides won't work properly if my point that I'm pivoting on is way out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a more centralized location, and we're going to pivot to a point and not from a point. So I'll come back to my isometric view. I'm going to create another point, and this time I'm going to go into my z-axis. I'm going to type in a -2 inches 100 thousandths, which goes right to the bottom of my part. Now I'm going to rotate this and then hit create. It's really hard to see, but it is making a little point right there, but it will be very visible here in just a second, and I'll leave it at this orientation so you can see it. So that's the previous point we were using. We just created a new one. So I'm going to hit escape. Then I'm going to go back into surface milling, go to the properties. We're going to go back to the Z level in the 5-axis tab. This time we're going to go to a point. And I don't want it to be point number 2, which will probably be point number 2 for you if you're starting, but mine is going to be point number 3. And that's just a default naming system that it comes up with, but you want to visually see that it is that point. I will click apply. I will click OK. I will come back up and go to isometric view, and I will simply hit play one more time. This time, after it gets done with the roughing, you'll see that the way it's leaning is a little bit different, and you'll see that my machine isn't tilting as much to make what it's trying to do. Now you'll see me kind of moving this around. I'm just trying to get a good visual on here, but it's going to be doing the same tool path but with less lean, so that way I'm less likely to run into vices and tooling and fixturing and still get the same results. And looky there, that's really cool. Now that I have good tool path, I've got a good lean, and I'm coming from a centralized location that will work with all 3 pockets. I'm going to hit eject, and this is where it gets really easy. If I go back into surface milling and go into properties, I can go into part surfaces, and then I can come back and I can select all of these surfaces on that pocket, all the surfaces on that pocket, and then I'm done. But if you want to, you can create 2 more surface milling for each pocket and then kind of play around with all those 5-axis pivot options. But I'm going to make it quick. I'm going to go to part surfaces, hold down control, and I'm going to start clicking away. And once I have all of these surfaces selected, I will hit the plus to add them, OK and apply. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm simply going to hit play, but I will speed this up a little bit. And now it's going to run all those surfaces, and it's going to clean everything up the same way we cleaned everything up on that first side. And just like that, we have successfully completed this tutorial. Now remember, don't exit, because then you'll have to do the whole thing again. So I want to go File, Save As. We'll type this as intermediate 5-axis simultaneous, and then we'll simply hit Save. I'll hit that. Of course, you saw my screen kind of goes blank. I just hit eject, and that kind of saves us. And just like that, we've got everything done. So I appreciate you watching these tutorials. This is all the tutorials I have for the milling. Make sure you watch the other 7 and let me know what you think. The last tutorial I did is right down here. Again, my name is Aaron Ruck. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the lathe tutorials.